I'm Tim Thompson, and this is Our Watch.
Well, good evening, everybody. So good to see you here. I want to say how wonderful it is to look out and not see a single mask. It is a beautiful thing. You guys are created in the image of God. You're not afraid to show it off. You're not going to cover it up. I think it's just a beautiful thing. If you were here tonight, all you that are watching online, if you were here tonight and could see what I see, you would see a very beautiful thing. For those of you that are tuned in online, we are glad you are with us. We hope you enjoy your time with us. And I just want to say what a joy it is to see so many people who take their freedoms seriously. You want to be educated and be an intelligent person involved in the process of choosing who we have govern over us. We have a very important question that we have to answer come September 14th. Do we want to recall Gavin Newsom, yes or no? Yes, we do. That is the utmost importance. We have to know how to answer that question. It's an absolute yes. Don't let anybody trick you thinking, okay, well, if you don't want Gavin Newsom, then you got to say no on that. The answer is yes. We want to recall him. The answer is yes. We want him out of office. The answer is yes. The guy is a bonehead, and we don't want him ruling over us anymore. And the thing is, if we don't get enough people to say yes come September 14th, you think the draconian measures he's been taking over the last 15, 16 months have been bad? Wait till you see what he does if we don't recall him. Wait till you see, watch. So here's the thing is, I don't even want to come to that point. I want to make sure we recall him, get him out. It's so important. Now, as we do that, we also, I've been very, very vocal about what happens in the public school system. We want to make sure that we have the right people making decisions that are going to affect our children. So we've been very active in that. I'm happy to tell you that we do have a list of supporters that is growing as we go out and we try to take back the public square, namely in the public school system. And we also have a list of potential candidates that is growing. So more to come on that, but I just want to make sure you know this is something we're very, very serious about here at Our Watch. Also, I just want to make sure that you know we do have the potential for more lockdowns coming up. I could tell you, as for me and my congregation at 412 Church here in Marietta, we are never closing, ever. Not going to happen. It is so important that people have a place to gather together, to worship God. And here's the thing is, Satan knows that something amazing happens when the body of Christ comes together. This is why we're told not to neglect it. There's something that happens when we come together. We spur one another on towards love, towards good works, especially as we see the day approaching. What's the day? The day is the return of Jesus Christ. And we see that as fast approaching. We cannot neglect coming together. We've seen too many bad things happen. Right here in our own county, the number of sexual attacks on children doubled in that year. Doubled. This is a bad thing, and we can't allow this to continue. So again, we are going to vote yes, we want to recall Gavin Newsom. Now, my hope and my goal is making sure that you are all informed voters and knowing who the candidates are. We're getting who I consider to be the top tier of people to get out here and get information to you. And I was asked by a friend of mine if I had heard of Anthony Trimino. And the person who asked me is somebody I want to invite up right now that is going to tell you something about him. But before he does that, he's going to give you a bit of a COVID update. So please welcome to the stage tonight, Dr. Dan Erickson. Thank you.
Good evening. I love this church. You guys stood, when the wind started blowing in March of 2020, this crazy bald-headed man I saw screaming on TV, and I was like, that's my guy. I'm going to know this guy. And, I've gotten to know Pastor Tim. What a cool cat. I mean, what a patriot. And I think it's so nice to be involved with brothers with like-mindedness who love this country and are just trying to keep this country what it was founded on. That's why we're all up here. This COVID thing has been, in my opinion, a little bit of a blessing in my world. I don't know that I would have met Tim otherwise. So we met through like linking arms and saying, no, enough, we're not having this. So, I mean, COVID, if you guys remember, people forget so quick, a year ago, when you were at home with a mask on your face being told, don't go to the store, don't interact with people, you were being called non-essential. Is anybody called non-essential in this room? You were locked down. My brother's an orthodontist. My brother-in-law is an orthopedic surgeon. They were both called non-essential. They didn't need to work. And I'm hoping we learn from that the lockdowns didn't work. They created financial devastation for all of us. They didn't prevent disease transmission. They were successful at a few things: depression, anxiety, alcoholism, suicide, very successful. So if we want to promote those things, I suggest lockdowns. If we don't, I say never again. That was a disaster. So what did we learn? You guys are already hearing words like Delta Force, these big words for a little tiny thing. And so what did we learn this time around? First of all, we have a bed of immunity right now. Like, imagine this table as the foundation. We have a foundation of immunity. People have COVID. They developed antibodies, T cells. People have been vaccinated. This time around, we have a lot of people that their immune systems are ready. We know what Delta has done in Europe. It spikes in about 3 weeks, which is kind of where we're at now. And what I'm anticipating in these next 2 to 4 weeks is, if you guys are watching TV, which you shouldn't be, they're going to tell you that the Delta is something to be afraid of. Why? So you're not confident in going out to vote, especially in California. And last week, I was watching the news, and it was like, Delta variant surging again. And I was like, okay. Cases are not what we're concerned with. Fatalities, people dying from disease, mortality, morbidity. This is what we're concerned with. We're not concerned with cases surging. It's like when the common cold comes in, which I'm not comparing the two, but we don't talk about rhinovirus spiking and 10,000 new colds this week. So you have to look at what they're counting: morbidity, mortality, death, and disease, hospital ICUs. And I was on the phone with some senators and doctors from around the nation today, and they were basically saying this Delta variant is being widely tolerated. But here's the thing: vaccinated versus unvaccinated are equally sharing the virus. So I have people that call me every week. I was vaccinated, I got COVID, I gave it to my family. I've got 10 calls today. Not all saying that, but what I'm telling you is, don't think that a vaccine prevents you from getting COVID, because it does not. It may help with some severity of disease, but when you're going to give someone the jab, you have to give them 3 things: risks, benefits, and alternative. What are the risks? Blood clots, bleed in your brain. You could get cardiomyopathy. If you get a doctor who doesn't tell you that it's super safe and there's no risks, that is called malpractice. Okay, so if you're going to get the vaccine, you need to understand those 3 things. Risks, what are the risks? Ask your doctor. What are the benefits? What are the alternatives for me? And then if you get COVID, one of the main things that I have seen being pushed down and repressed is early therapy. Same thing I said a year ago. I've got the same message right now as I did a year ago. Hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin, vitamin C, vitamin D, zinc, doxycycline. Early therapy. I have so many people calling me saying, oh, it's day 14, what should I do? And I go, call me at day 3. This is the first 10 days. We also have monoclonal antibodies, very, very effective at neutralizing COVID. It's an hour infusion. Most people tolerate it well. How many of you have heard of monoclonal infusion? Maybe 5, 10%? That's the problem. We have effective therapies. They're not being broadcast. Eli Lilly. These companies produce them. We have them. So if you have questions, you can go to acceleratedurgentcare.com. It'll show you if you meet criteria. If you have family with COVID, please seek out early therapy. And if your doctor tells you there's nothing to do, go to acceleratedurgentcare.com, get a hold of Tim, get a hold of me, so we can get you the therapies in the first 10 days. Don't wait 2 weeks. So I don't want to go, I could go for hours on this subject, but I'm going to keep it tight because you made me keep it tight. And I want to switch gears a little bit and just talk about Anthony Trimino real quick, because he's the reason we're here tonight. I met Anthony, I don't know, 6-8 weeks ago, and Carmen had sent me a video, and I was like, oh, brother, another one. So, and then I listened to the content. I listened to the story, and then I went out to his business, Traffic, a marketing firm, very successful marketing firm in Irvine, and I met him one-on-one, and I said, are you the real deal? Or are you just another guy looking for a little fame, looking to build a show, radio, whatever you're looking to build? And after I spent some time with him, I said, no, this guy has the right ideas on faith, on freedom, on lockdowns, on personal medical freedom. Every one of my boxes was checked off. And so I think as you listen to him tonight, you'll see he is interested in protecting your freedom. He's interested in protecting your family. He's interested in keeping your church open. All the major things that are important, I think he checks the right box on. So that's why I told Pastor Tim, I said, I know this guy you don't see him everywhere, but his message is poignant, it's clear, it's concise, and he has a backbone. And we need somebody with a backbone heading in the right direction. So, yeah, so if you'll help me, if you'll help me welcome Anthony Trimino to the stage, and he can speak for himself, and I think you're going to like him.
All right. Got it. I got it. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Erickson.
Right on, buddy.
Anthony
Hello.
Trimino, how are you, sir?
I'm doing good. How are
Good.
you?
I am great. I'm happy to have you out tonight. And I know that they're all happy to get to hear from you and meet you.
Yeah, happy to be here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like Dr. Dan Erickson. I see a lot of people that are running, and sometimes it scares me because I'm wondering why are they doing this, and so I was happy as I spoke to you, and I got to see, for me, I got to see you interact with your wife. I've seen you interact with your kids. And as a pastor, I've been a pastor a long time, and I've watched people with their families, and I see how their families interact, and I see how the kids interact with the parents and what type of home they were raised in. And it was just a beautiful thing for me to see the interaction you have with your family that clearly loves you and respects you and wants to work together as a team. So a lot of that has to do with your faith. Mm-hmm. If you would, just as we open up, talk about your faith so that way everybody knows where you're coming from.
Yeah, this is actually the first time I've ever gone out to speak where the majority of my family is not with me. I have my son Nico with me tonight, my youngest boy of 4, and my wife and my daughter are. My daughter's her entire schedule has been uprooted because of this whole thing, so I committed that she could have mom for the weekend. My son's with me today, but yeah, my faith means everything to me. It's the foundation on which everything in my life is built. Even quite literally, our house, when we built our house up, we put a Bible in the foundation of our home. It rests right underneath our front door because we wanted to make sure that our home was built on biblical values. It's that same, idea that I take into how I run my household, my parenting, and my business itself. Without God, without His favor over me, no amount of hard work that I put into what I've done could have achieved the outcome that I've achieved. So even this running, this calling that I said yes to is really just out of obedience to God. I feel like God wants to reclaim His land. California, He wants California back. He wants America back, and He wants us to be an example for the rest of the world. So I'm doing this out of obedience. My family has decided to join me on this journey. We're all stepping out in faith and obedience, and we're amazed at what God is doing each and every day, including being here today.
Amen. A lot of people have much to gain in running for an office like this. The way I look at your life, you appear to have much to lose running.
I calculate that every single day.
Yeah. You are an entrepreneur. You've built one of the fastest growing companies in America. Talk about your company, why you started it, how it began, and what, through your faith in the Lord, how you've been able to build that.
Yeah, that entrepreneurial spirit starts way back in the 50s when my grandfather fled a communist Cuba, came to California to start a new life for him and his family. He did not want to depend on the government. Having just left Cuba, where the government is control of every part of your life, he actually wanted to create a life where he wouldn't be dependent on the government. So he became an entrepreneur, started a company 50 years ago that still exists today in South Central LA that my father runs. He instilled that entrepreneurial spirit into my father. My father then instilled it into me. We started our family young, so I didn't get to actually, develop as an entrepreneur for quite a while. We had very humble beginnings. But 20 years ago, I did start a company, a small little 200 square foot office in Downey, California. Through hard work, a lot of favor, I built that company up to what Inc. magazine just called one of the fastest growing privately held companies in America, 2 years in a row. And thank you. The thing I'm most proud about is we received that second distinction for 2020. And 2020, in the height of a pandemic, our entire industry was collapsing on itself. 80% of ad agencies had gone through 3 layoffs. Many of them closed their doors. They'll never reopen. And in the midst of a pandemic, we were able to not only increase our physical footprint 3 times from 5,000 square feet to almost 17,000, 18,000 square feet. We doubled our staff, and I didn't have to lay off a single individual. In fact, in the 20 years that I've owned this company, I've never laid off a single individual, and I'm very proud about that. So when we talk about what people stand to gain or lose in this, I'm not a career politician, so this wouldn't be a promotion for me. A lot of times in politics, they look at this, especially governor, that's a promotion. That is, next to the president, one of the most prestigious roles you can have. You look at some other people running, and it would help them publicly and in their career. The exposure would help them. I'm one of the few, if not the only candidate that actually has everything to lose and almost absolutely nothing to gain. So there's no personal interest in it for me. I've already started to see the impact on my business, but I feel like this is a noble fight, and we're called for such a time as this. So I'm willingly entering into this with the clear understanding that there is nothing for me to gain except for honoring God in obedience.
Amen. It's important for me as a pastor to ask these kind of questions, because to me, I want to win. Yes. I want us to win. We have to answer that question, yes, do we want to recall him or not? The answer is yes, but we want to win, but we want to make sure that we do, like you said, we want to do what's going to glorify God in recapturing his land. And it's going to take somebody who understands that this is a spiritual battle, this is God's battle. We have to hear from him and trust in him. And that is something your family has done, and you've reaped the benefits of that. Talk about your family life, if you would, because family is a key element of your campaign. So talk about your family life and how you view the family and why that's such an important part of what you're running on. Sure. We started our family young. I met my wife. She was 17. I was 19. We started our family a few years later. I was 21 years old when I had my first son. We have 5 beautiful children, 4 of our own, a biological, 1 adopted, and we were a foster family for a season of our life. Family's everything, and it's critically important that we understand that what we need to elect is not just a governor. We need to elect a CEO. We can get to that in a second, but we also need somebody who understands the importance of family. If you think about all the problems that are plaguing California right now, if you look at our prison systems, our foster care system, you look at homelessness, you look at drug abuse, those are all symptoms of a bigger disease, right? And any politician can go and address the symptoms, but it's not going to fix the core problem. And what is the core problem? We have broken families in California and across America. Fatherless homes. We have a government that will actually incentivize our minority communities to have a broken home. We'll pay you more money if the father does not live within the household. That is a broken system. That's a broken government. We can't build a safe and sustainable society like that. So for me, family values are core to everything that I'm running on. Policy is important. We'll get to homelessness. I'm a CEO. I work with the brightest and best minds in the United States.
we can address energy, we can address homelessness, we can address healthcare. All of that does need to be addressed. But those are symptoms to a bigger problem. And unless we have a family-first agenda, we will never get out of this and leave California better to our kids than we received it.
Right. So it's going to take a CEO. And one of the things I love, when Dr. Dan Erickson first called me, he said, Tim, it's going to take a CEO. It's somebody who makes thousands of decisions every single day that don't just affect that one person, but they affect the lives of so many people. So why is it going to take a CEO, and how do you feel you can best fit that
Sure.
role for California?
Well, California is the 5th largest economy on the planet. So it's a business. So why would we put anybody in office that doesn't understand how to build or keep a profitable business? It doesn't make any sense. So we need a CEO because the CEO can look at, a balance sheet, P&Ls. The CEO can look at, for me in particular, how look at our wasteful spending, renegotiate all of our contracts, kill projects that don't benefit the majority of Californians, and then figure out how to make money again in California. I have tax plans that will tax, the advertising industry outside of California, the travel industry outside of California, not penalizing Californians, but actually monetizing California itself. Because think about it, corporations outside of California, they want your eyes, they want your ears, they want your dollars, right? And so we need to capitalize that and monetize that. Well, politicians don't think that way. Politicians like to color within the lines, but CEOs and entrepreneurs are constantly coloring outside of the lines. We're trying to think of new and innovative ways to solve problems. So we definitely need a CEO, and what I've done over the last 20 years, I don't have a college education, graduated high school, but everything that I've done through just sheer will, favor of God, hard work, aligning myself with the brightest and best minds that I can get in a room with, and that's the kind of thinking that we need to save California.
Amen. The Constitution of the United States of America and the Constitution of California are something that you care about. Mm-hmm. There are 2 amendments to the Constitution that you say are under attack. We're looking at the American dream. The American dream means much to you, and the American dream means much to your family, being the son of a Cuban immigrant. Mm-hmm. We see what's going on in Cuba right now, and I'm sure that tugs at your heart. But there are 2 amendments that you say are under attack. Talk about those 2 amendments and how you view that attack. And as the son of a Cuban immigrant and watching what's going on in Cuba right now, what is it about this current situation that has you on fire saying we've got to protect the Constitution, and especially these 2 amendments?
Absolutely. So the Second Amendment, our right to bear arms, if you watch any videos that are online right now with what's happening in Cuba, you'll see a very heavily armed military attacking unarmed citizens. They have no way to defend themselves. I even heard that they were using forks and sticks. That's all they have, right? So you have a heavily armed military dragging people out of their homes, beating them, incarcerating them. We can never let our country get to that place. That's one of the greatest things, one of the things that makes America so unique is our ability to protect ourselves. In fact, there are 5 God-given inalienable rights. One of them is the ability to protect ourselves. So that amendment, that Second Amendment, has to be protected at all costs. And in California, there are 111 gun laws that will restrict you from either owning a gun or restricting the type of gun that you can own. And then we have a growing gun roster list that's making it even more difficult. So I would immediately work to remove a lot of those restrictions and allow law-abiding citizens to own guns lawfully. And then we would look at the gun roster and start to roll that back and so that it's more consistent with the rest of America. But I believe that our right to bear arms is under attack here in California, and we need to stand up and we need to protect it. Irregardless of how you feel about owning a gun, we should preserve the right to defend ourselves against foreign and domestic threats.
Yes. I'm against owning a gun. I'm for owning guns.
I like that. Yeah.
So go out and buy some guns.
I often get asked, what is your position on Second Amendment? I said, I've purchased more guns in the last 12 months than I have in my entire life. And I think everybody should do the same. Going back to the First Amendment, which is our right to worship and our right to free speech, again, it's another thing that separates us from communist countries. Right now in Cuba, the government controls all the media. They control everything on TV, everything in print. They control the entire narrative.
Well, that sounds like kind of where we're living right now.
Well, I often said if my grandfather was still alive and he came back at some point in 2020 and decided to walk the streets and realizes the churches were shut down, the government controlled the media, you couldn't go to work, they told you, they controlled every aspect of your life, he would actually wonder, am I in Cuba or am I in California? It's actually pretty sad, but with regards to our freedom of speech, you have big tech companies who exist in this state who have basically bullied you and have basically tried to shut our voices, right? They want our money, they want our ears, they want our eyes, but they just don't want our voices. And so I would be a huge advocate for penalizing and punishing these tech companies that want to strip us from our voice.
Amen. There's a thing known as separation of church and state. A lot of people, as I was growing up, and we're roughly the same age, so as we were growing up here, we were told about separation of church and state. And the way that I was told, maybe you experienced something similar, I heard that the church is supposed to just butt out of everything that the government's doing, but quite the contrary. First of all, the idea of separation of church and state, it's not in the Constitution, but it was in a letter that Thomas Jefferson penned to a seminary. But the idea is that the church isn't supposed to be ruled or governed by the government. That the government's actually supposed to leave the church alone. Would that be the approach you take, is let the church be the church and the government be the government?
Absolutely, 100%. Are you kidding? I often said with regards to churches and the shutdowns, there's never a good time to shut down a church. If we were in a nuclear war and the world was going to end tomorrow, the very last thing I would shut down is a church. A church is always essential, especially in troubling times. And so the church needs to operate independent of government overreach, 100%.
There is a lot of nervousness right now. There's a lot of hesitancy. We've heard the term vaccine hesitancy. You're not, from what you've told me, you're not an anti-vaxxer, but you are a person who believes that these type of decisions need to be made in a particular area. Would you speak about that and what we could expect from you should you get elected?
I've recently said that I believe this is one of the greatest attacks on our freedom in U.S. history. The encroachment on our medical freedom is, I can't even stomach it anymore. You heard about what's happening in New York. De Blasio actually said in his statement that he commends states that will soon follow, like California. I believe that is the hill that we need to die on. That is the fight that everybody should be involved with, no matter what side you are on.
Yeah, I heard our president. Gosh, it makes me sick even saying that. But I heard him on the news this last week saying that there's going to be people that aren't getting the vaccine. They're going to die, and nobody has to die. And I heard him say that, and I thought, well, first of all, yes, everybody has to die. That's a statistic we can't outrun.
100% guarantee, right?
One out of one of us is going to pass away. It's that simple.
I heard that everyone who drinks water will die at some point in their life, right?
Yeah. Right. So the thing is, they're pushing this idea of, and he said in his speech, he said that he's going to push for states to give people $100 to go and get the vaccine. And I was talking to some people, and they said, you know what though, Pastor Tim, there will be some people that will go and get it for the $100. And I'm thinking, and I'm not trying to be crass, but what else will they let people stick in their body for $100? And
I mean, Gavin Newsom's willing to pay you millions for it, right? Because he recently conducted a lottery, so he's willing to spend a lot more money to allow people to get the vaccines than even our president. But make no mistake about it, I'm not an anti-vaxxer. I'm not here to tell you shouldn't get the vaccine. If it makes you comfortable if it gives you peace of mind, if you've done the research and you've looked at the data, and it's a decision that you want for you and your family, and your physician agrees, get the shot. You should have the right to do so. But you shouldn't force me to do anything that I don't want to do or that I don't feel is right for my body or my family. And I think, again, that is a significant attack on our freedom and our liberty. And that is one of the biggest fights I'm willing to have. I can't get to office fast enough, actually, because this is the one that scares me the most. We'll get to fires, we'll get to homelessness, we'll get to all of that. But if this guy remains in office come September, what he could do over the next 11 months before the general election could be irreversible. And so you guys need to make sure that not only that you vote, but that 10 friends of yours and 10 friends of theirs, that they get out, they vote yes on question number 1 to recall Newsom. He has to go. Our freedom, our liberty, our lives may be depending on it.
One of the things, you say that a lot of things are under attack. Our medical freedom under attack, the First and Second Amendment under attack, children's innocence under attack. And that is one thing that's been so near and dear to my heart. Well before COVID, this is the fight that I've been in. And a lot of people, their eyes are beginning to open up to the reality that there is a sexual indoctrination of what's taking place, and an attempt to lower the age of consent for sex. Why? Because there are some sick people that want to have sex with children. And people say, oh, it's not. And I want to show you, this is something that somebody found here locally at one of the stores, that coat factory, what's it called? Burlington, thank you. I don't shop. I'm a guy. Guys don't shop, they buy things. There's a difference. So at Burlington, this is on a backpack that's for kids that was for sale right here. And if you can't read it there, it says, I want more fun, I want more sex, I want more, and it just goes on and on. But it's like, I want more sex? Like, you're going to give this to a child? And people, oh, they're not trying to sexualize our kids. You give them a backpack that says, I want more sex, and you're saying that they're not trying to sexualize children? I mean, our eyes need to be very open and very well aware of the sexual indoctrination that's taking place. And you say very pointedly that our children's innocence is under attack. So how's your view on that? And what is it that you see, and what would you try to do differently?
That's the new battleground. It's our public school system. They're trying to attack our most vulnerable in society, our children, because they can't fight back and they don't know any better. And I can't tell you how many parents I talk to that are on their way out of California for that very reason, because they don't trust our public school systems. Tim, if you and I were to be outside and we pulled a 12-year-old, and said, hey, we want to talk to you about sex. We want to talk to you about sexuality. Hey, we want to talk to you about masturbation. We would be arrested. But why is it that the following day, you can walk into a classroom in front of 30 impressionable children and have the same conversation? Not only would I stop that, I would make it illegal to be taught in our school systems.
Another thing that's being pushed upon our kids right now, and it's a clear attempt to divide our state and divide our nation, is the critical race theory. And you mentioned that our kids are under attack with this. So if you would, speak to that.
Yeah, they want to convince our children that they're born racist because of the color of their skin, or that you're born oppressed because of the color of your skin. And the truth is that radical ideology is exactly what the Nazis used, it's exactly what the Cubans used, and the Chinese government uses as well. Again, they target the most vulnerable, and they start to indoctrinate them with radical ideologies because they create radical adults. And in chaos, these type of governments can control and remain in control. So we need to fight against this. We need to banish that from our curriculum for sure, and that also needs to be illegal as well. So that's one of the first things I would do, is start to reverse any idea that type of ideology would be taught in our school systems. I think that, any conversation regarding sex ed, regarding sexuality, regarding just all those impressionable topics should be done at the dinner table, not in your classrooms and not by Sacramento.
You're a man of faith, and I would make assumptions about a person who says they're a man of faith, but I don't want to make an assumption. And many people have asked me, what is Anthony Trimino's position on life? So, what is it?
That's a simple one, pro-life. I mean, it's inarguable. I believe that all life should be protected, especially the unborn. Which, by the way, no conservative running should be wavering on that particular topic. They should be firm, they should be strong, and they should be consistent. If they're not, you need to call that out.
The way I look at it is they are, the unborn are the most defenseless of all people in our state. And if we can't trust a person with an unborn child, how can we trust them with our roads and our health care and our public school system and our borders and everything that is encompassed in that type of role? If they're willing that a child would be murdered in the womb, I don't trust them with anything. So to me, it truly is of the utmost importance. Families, businesses, our ability to worship are under attack, as you say. How are the businesses under attack? What would you do differently?
California is not a business-friendly state. One of the reasons I was thinking about uprooting my company from California was because it's no longer attractive to own a business here in California. If you're a small business owner, like, say, a restaurant, you can't even fully open right now because people are more incentivized to stay on unemployment than they are to go back to work. Our system is broken when we start to incentivize people for not going to work. Bigger businesses are being penalized. There are restrictions and regulations being imposed on big businesses that are sending companies out. We're no longer a manufacturing state. And it's this whole Robin Hood mentality of let's punish the big, let's punish the elite, and let's rescue the middle class. But that's a big lie, because let me tell you what happens. If you punish the high net worth individuals and the big businesses and you say, look, hey, anybody making under $100,000 a year, don't worry, we're going to take care of you. We're going to punish everyone else. We've got you, we're going to punish everyone else. Well, what happens is that you end up punishing people unfairly. They end up leaving. They take their companies, they take their jobs, and they take their tax dollars. So what does that do to the middle class? It means that the middle class has to make up the difference in the delta. So my plan to make California business friendly is to work on eliminating state income tax across the board. It's $181 billion to achieve that. I've already gotten to about 79, 80 billion of it just in how we would monetize things. That's before I open the books, start cutting programs that don't make any sense, start renegotiating our contracts. And so I'm confident that I can get there and actually not only allow everyone to benefit from lower taxes, but make it incredibly attractive for the businesses that have left to come back.
You would cut programs that don't make sense. Are there any of those programs that are glaring us in the face right now that you would say, hey, that just needs to stop?
Well, the train to nowhere is one of them for sure. I mean, that project has been actually moved. The deadline on that project has been moved, I think, 5 times, and they're already talking about an extension. We pay for that extension. We pay for all of those miscalculations and bad negotiations. So that's one of them. But there are a lot of lobbyists that are fighting for conservationists that have a lot of our taxpayer dollars not working for our taxpayers. So we'd look at that too.
So as a pastor, I look at the issue of the border. Certainly, we are in a crisis. Whether Jen Psaki will say the word crisis or not is still yet to be determined. But we're seeing a crisis at the border. As Christians, we look at things objectively through the lens of this right here. What does the Word of God say about every issue, because it really does have something to say about every issue we're dealing with. It certainly has something to say about the borders. Borders, according to Acts chapter 17, borders are something God establishes. So as believers, we value the border. We think it's a good thing, and to try to tear down a border, I mean, a nation without borders is not a nation. So borders are important, but you'll see varying degrees from different conservative candidates, where it's, shut the border down, kick them all out of our country, and then there's the entire opposite end of that. And I think somewhere along the line, we need to find a candidate that can show compassion, that will deal with the border issue with common sense and compassion, and do things that are right for our state, but also do things that aren't going to tear families apart. Being the son of a Cuban immigrant, you're half Cuban, half Hispanic, half Cuban, half Mexican. And you have, I'm sure, a distinctly different view on how that looks compared to some of the other candidates that are running. So what would you do differently? How would you propose that we handle the crisis? Because it is a crisis.
The interesting thing being 50% Mexican, 50% Cuban, I always say 100% American because I was born here. I'm in marketing, so everything is about packaging, right? And so when you put this message, when you talk about strong borders and strong immigration laws, and you put that message in the wrong package, put it into a white, you put it into a career politician, it falls on deaf ears, and you can't get the minority community to completely understand the importance and significance of strong borders. But I, as the messenger, I get to tell a beautiful story. I get to, and especially when I'm in front of believers, the way I like to frame it is that even heaven has gates. So while heaven is open to everybody, at the end of the day, there's still a policy and a procedure to get there, right? Well, I believe that the United States and California should be the same way, and that we should be welcoming. It should be a place where immigrants can aspire to come, like my grandfather, who came legally, who became a U.S. citizen. There's a process and a protocol. As an employer, I'm constantly having to, we hire a lot of people that are on student visas that then translate into work visas. And a lot of times either they didn't file their paperwork correctly, or they lose the lottery, or whatever it is, and ultimately they have to leave the country. Now, they could easily take the position that, well, I'm not going to leave. I'll just stay here illegally. But these law-abiding people who want to serve our country and be honorable, they pack up, they leave. They leave their job, they leave friends, they leave family behind. And so I believe that we should have very strong immigration laws. We should have a very strong handle on our border. And I believe that there is a compassionate way to deal with the people who are here. The people who are here, we can identify who they are, and we can put them into a program so that they can, if they're in school or they're working and they're tax paying, there can be a path for them to stay. But if you're here illegally and you've broken our laws, you should be on the first bus back.
We're looking at a lot of things that are broken that need to be fixed. And a lot of people, like you said, they have lost hope. They've packed up, they've moved their companies to other states. I know a lot of families who've said, I've just had it. I'm going to pack up my family. I'm moving to Idaho. I'm moving to Texas. I'm moving to Tennessee, Florida. I've heard a lot and known a lot of families that have moved. And I look at people like you who have companies like you have. Like I said, you have a lot to lose. But I know several people like you who have said, I just don't feel God has given me the green light to leave. And I feel like I'm here for such a time as this. It's what I'm hearing you say is the same thing I'm hearing some of these other people say the same thing. Like, I've got to stay here and fight. So clearly you see a glimmer of hope. You see that this is a fight that can be won. So share with us your hope and maybe the vision God's given you for winning, and what that's going to look like and how that's going to happen. Because what you've told me is that there are conventional ways to do this and non-conventional. So you have a way that you believe God is speaking to you. What is that way?
Well, I believe that this is beyond politics. This is a spiritual battle, not just for our soil, but for our souls. And when I think about it through that perspective, it gives me a lot of hope, because this means that this battle is His, and that we just need to act in obedience, and that through Him all things are possible. And so I believe that the American dream is still alive. It's on life support. But I believe that it will take this generation. We're all here for such a time as this. Everybody has a role in this. I've chosen my role. You need to choose yours. And everybody does have a role in this, and we need everybody to get together and do something about it. But I'm very optimistic about what could happen, because I think that God was just looking to reclaim His land. God is looking to reclaim California. And He's looking for people to step up and say, send me. And I believe that that's what I did. I did it reluctantly at first, because fleshly and my secular views are that, yeah, my life would be a lot better if I just packed up and went to Florida. My quality of life would increase. I'd make more money, pay less taxes, and I actually like Florida. But at the end of the day, they say that the woman is the neck, the man is the head. My wife, through fervent prayer, continued to just be in my ear telling me, God is saying that we need to stand and fight for California, that there's a battle to be had, and He's looking for people to rise up. And through a lot of prayer and a lot of confirmation, I got to a point where I said, you know what? All right, God, there's nothing in this for me except for obedience, and that's enough. Send me. And what He's done since we said yes to this has been nothing short of miraculous. I've sat with career politicians. I've sat with political strategists. I sat with the political strategist that put Schwarzenegger in office during the recall and then got him reelected. And now I've spoken to political strategists that have worked on campaigns across the nation. Every one of them has a very traditional equation for how you win. They sit down and they tell me, look, if you want to win and you're serious, $4.9 million, these endorsements, these affiliations, this is your path to win. If you don't have these things, you cannot get there. I shake their hand, I thank them for their time, and I say, thank you so much for showing me what not to do. Because if I... The truth of the matter is that if I got to office following traditional math and traditional logic, I would stand on that podium one day and there would be absolutely no room for God. Somebody else would take credit, some political strategist, somebody who spent a ton of money on my campaign, even myself maybe. But because He's doing things in the supernatural, the non-traditional, every time we think, hey, logic says go this way, He says, no, go that way. Every time He says, hey, tonight there's a big debate being televised by Fox. And there were people that were advocating for me online. There were people showing up to the venue to protest, to try and get me in, to just raise enough havoc. And my wife and I just, in our heart, we just came to the conclusion, we don't even want to fight that battle. This is where we want to be tonight, because this is where God's people are. And I was in church about a week ago and thinking about God showing up in the campaign. And the pastor was saying, look, when they were waiting to hear from God, they were looking for Him in the wind that was shattering the rocks. They were looking for Him in the fire that consumed the mountainside, right? They were looking for Him in all the wonders and spectacles. And how did He show up? In a whisper. He showed up in a whisper, in the least likely place. And I truly believe that that is what God's doing. And these guys that have been with me since the beginning, they know 2 months ago, I said, hey, this is how we're going to win. I'm in advertising, so I know what it's like to spend a ton of money on TV, radio, print, outdoor. I said, that's not how we're going to win. I said, we're going to win through a whisper. It's going to be one person telling another person, and we're just going to cover the entire state. So when I think about all those people that are there tonight, debating, catering and pandering to another audience, looking for the solution to come in the wind that shatters the rocks and the fire that consumes the hillside, I'd rather be here with you whispering about how we're going to take back our state and give Him all the glory.
I want to thank you for letting your yes be yes and coming here tonight. I know you had that opportunity to go to that, but you came here instead, and I know we all appreciate that, so thank you so much for that. And I appreciate your approach and how you're going about this, and so I want to ask you, for everybody that's here tonight, everybody that's watching online, if they like what they've heard, what can they do to help you? What steps can they take? What is it that you need from them? What are you asking of them? And how can they connect with you?
I've said this to every single person that has asked, how can we help? I've said, I don't know. Pray about it. Ask God how you can get involved. Every single person in here, every person watching, you have resources that God has given you. You have a network that He's given you access to, and He's given you guys platforms. I would ask that you seek Him. Find out how you can get into this fight, how you can get involved, and what you can provide. We need visibility. We need whispers. We need people telling people about what we're doing. We need people supporting us and praying for us. The simple thing is you can go to our website, anthonytrimino.com. You can follow us on social media at Tremino. But the bigger thing that you can do, well, there's a couple things. Number one, show up on September 14th, please. Exercise your right to vote. Bring people with you. Right now, there are people that don't even know we're in a recall. They don't know how it works. Educate yourself, equip yourself, know how it works. This is not a general election. You don't need the popular candidate to win Gavin Newsom. Gavin Newsom is not competing against any other candidate. Gavin Newsom is competing against you. It's Gavin Newsom versus the people of California.
Right.
Yeah, you guys could vote him out. So show up, vote yes on question number 1. Let's get this guy out. And then when you get to question number 2, inevitably, and that's who do you want to replace him, go with your heart. Pray about it. Find someone that aligns with more than just your policy, but your principles and your values as well. I hope that it's me. I hope I've done enough. And if not, reach out to me. Let's engage. Let's talk. I'm happy to have conversations with you. We need change, but we need someone who is a real conservative that stands on biblical values. Otherwise, we'll just be handing our state back over to somebody that does not have our best interests at heart.
You're going to hang out for a little bit and talk to people?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I hope you guys won't just jet out of here, but go out, meet him, encourage him. You know, I can tell you this. I'm so glad you're doing this and I'm not.
No, we're doing it together. Yeah. You just don't know it.
Well, the thing for me is I don't think people realize the type of attacks that are going to come against you spiritually for what you're doing. This is, like you said, this is a spiritual attack. This is a spiritual battle. God bless you. Mm-hmm. And this is spiritual, and it's going to require a lot of people praying mm-hmm. for you and making sure that they support you in that type of praying, because the enemy's going to come against you in just an incredibly powerful way. And I'm glad that you're approaching this with the attitude of greater is he who's in you than he who's in the world. So glad that you're in this fight. So see him afterwards, encourage him. I want to thank Dr. Dan Erickson for joining us tonight, and just an incredible blessing. So thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much.
Really
appreciate it. You guys, I want to remind you, we've got Congressman Ken Calvert is going to be out here next Wednesday night. There's a lot of stuff going on in the world and right here at home. He is on the House Defense Committee. We've got a lot to talk about, the defense of our nation and the defense of our state. I mean, what's going on? So you're not going to want to miss next week as well. I want to thank you all for coming out tonight. I want to say hello and thank you to everybody that tuned in online. So glad you were with us, and we will see you all next week on Our Watch. God bless you.